All right, so no, wrong way. So here we have parallel lines. If we call this line AB, okay, and we call this line CD, you could write AB is parallel to CD. And this right here, that means parallel. Okay, that's what that symbol means. 1 second. All right, so that's what parallel means. If you see that symbol, that means parallel. And again, this means line. If we were just talking about segments, remember segments would look like this. Segment. A line. Array. Okay, so different terminologies important to know. All right. All right, moving forward. For number 19 here, okay, number 19, name 2 intersecting lines. Now the answers are right there, okay? However, you could have many different intersecting lines, okay? QT and ST, TD and AD, DC and SC, BC, SC, RB, CB, AB, RB, okay? All of these are intersecting lines. Name 3 collinear points. 3 points that are on the same line, okay? Sorry. 3 non-collinear points, okay? So if you said like A, T, and R, those are not collinear points because they're not on the same line, okay? Name a pair of parallel lines. QR and AB, TS and DC, BC, RS, QT, AD. Those are all parallel lines. QA, RB, all parallel lines. 3 lines that intersect at D, AD, TD, and CD. Okay? Complete with always, sometimes, or never to make a true statement. A line and a point are always coplanar. A line and a point are always coplanar. 2 segments are sometimes coplanar. However, they could also be non-coplanar. Okay? Skew lines are never coplanar. All right? 2 points are always collinear. Okay? Meaning that there's only one line that makes the 2 points. All right, 1,5 and 1,6. Segments of the same length are congruent segments, and the midpoint of the segment divides them into 2 congruent segments. 2 rays with the same endpoint form an angle. Angles can be classified as acute, right, obtuse, straight. Angles with the same measure are congruent angles. Let's go into that really quick. Okay, so less than 90 degrees equals acute. Okay. Greater than 90 degrees. So in math, this is how we would write this. The x is greater than 90 degrees, but less than 180 degrees. This is called obtuse. Okay. When you see this, 90 degrees equals a right and a straight angle. Okay, 4 different types of angles. Very important that you know all those. Find 2 possible coordinates of Q so that PQ equals 5. Okay, 2 possible coordinates of Q so that PQ equals 5. Well, let's look at this. P All right, so we want PQ. We're going to come up with a Q, okay? So we want PQ to equal 5. Segment PQ to equal 5. So if we go 2, 4, 5, so Q equals 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 7, or Q equals negative 7. Remember, we talked about the absolute value or the distance from here to here, okay? Distance is always positive, okay? Always positive. All right, so find the coordinate of the midpoint PH, okay? So if you have P and H, 2 plus 3, negative 2 plus 3 is 1. 1 divided by 2 is 1/2, okay? Number 28. Okay, so midpoint is negative 2 plus 3 divided by 2 is 1 divided by 2, 0.5. All right, so the midpoint is the difference between the two. So negative 2 plus 3 divided by 2 gives you 1/2. Okay, the midpoint formula is the distance between the two divided by 2. Okay, don't forget the midpoint formula. Find the value of each variable. All right, so number 29. Let's see, we have 3m plus 5 and 4m minus 10. All right, little bit of a tricky question in the sense that, 1 second, let me just finish drawing this up for you. All right, what tells us, Naomi, what tells us that A and B is equal to B and BC? How do we know that they are equal? It's okay if you don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how I would answer that.
That's totally fine. That's not a problem at all. So just pay attention because we're going to get to the answer, yeah? Solas, how do we know A and B is equal to BC?
Will you repeat that?
How do we know that segment AB is equal or congruent to BC?
Because they're the same length.
How do you know?
Well, I know because the spacing between the lines. Not how to explain it.
Okay, not a bad guess that the spacing, but sometimes when like Mr. Scribner draws on the test, I can't draw it perfectly clear. So the line spacing might not be perfectly equal. How would you know, Luigi, that these two segments are congruent?
I'm not so sure. I was saying that they were the same length, but I'm still not so sure how I would know that they're this. How I would demonstrate this.
I think I can answer that question.
Okay, 1 second. I just want to show you guys a picture. All right. Luigi,
Yeah. Well,
give me two segments that are congruent.
I don't know how many numbers they represent. They must have to 45.
Okay. Okay, hold on, Luigi. Nizari, how do we know which two segments are congruent?
Because of little lines across them indicate, for example, the ones with one line, C, for example, has one line on it. And so
Okay,
is the
very good. Very good.
BA.
So if we see BE and CE, right? This line and this line, those are equal or congruent. How do we know? Because they both have one line. That is a way in geometry that we tell you that they are the same. Okay? So, Naomi, back to our question. How do I know that AB and BC are congruent?
Because there's only one line for each.
Because there's one line in between each of them. And if you were looking on your book here, you see that little pink line right there? You guys should all see this little pink line right here. That tells you that AB is equal to C. Okay? All right. Now, let's go ahead and solve this problem. Okay? Let's go ahead and solve it. So if they're equal, if AB is equal to BC, we can say 3M plus 5 is equal to 4M minus 10. Now we can simply subtract 3M, those cross off, and you get 5 is equal to M minus 10 plus 10 plus 10, M equals 15. Okay? Once you know what M is, now you can find AB is equal to 3 times 15 plus 5, 45 plus 5, 50. So segment AB, BC, they're both 50. Okay? Awesome. All right, let's continue. Let's do the next one where we got a segment addition. All right, these are you're gonna have some of these on your test. Okay, really quickly, number 31, name a pair of complementary angles. Complementary angles together equal 90 degrees. Okay, complementary angles equal 90 degrees. All right, I'm gonna take a moment and just prepare the Jamboard. So just hang tight. I want you all to look at this question, right? And I want you to see if you can solve it. Okay, you have the answer 31. See if you can solve this on your paper. You should be able to solve it, no problem. It is the angle addition postulate. All right. All right, another minute. All right, I'm going to give you guys the first hint. If you're stuck. It equals 180 because this is a straight angle.
So we're doing 31 or oh, never mind. Sorry.
All right, next step, eliminate parentheses. Next step, combine like terms. Isolate the variable. All right. Again, you always have to know whether or not you're saying that the angles are equal to each other, whether they add up to 180 or whether they add up to some other angle. All right, now let's look at this. Name a pair of the following. Okay, so complementary angles, supplementary angles, and vertical angles. Very, very important. Okay, so here we go. ADB. All right, complementary means two angles together equal 90 degrees. And this little 90-degree sign tells you that, okay? Supplementary angles, okay? Supplementary angles would be like ADE and ADC. Well, let's do ADB. Sorry, ED. Sorry. And the reasoning why is the measure of angle EDB plus the measure of angle BDC equals 180 degrees. Okay? Vertical angles would be EDA and CDF. EDA CDF are vertical angles. Okay? Vertical angles are congruent. All right, very important to understand all of that right there. All right, let's continue. Just zoom out of this a little bit. All right, getting towards the end, right? This is talking about, construction is talking about a compass or a protractor, things that allow you to create angles, to sketch angles, all right? And the way that that would work is you would simply create the length that you want your circle. You would put it at the center of your circle and twist the protractor around. Okay, we can't do that because you need to be in person to do that. However, it is an important skill to be able to learn. It's not as important today as it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago, because today there's apps, there's machines and tools that you can use to help you to do all this without having to do it manually. All right. Perpendicular lines intersect at right angles. Very, very important to understand perpendicular lines. If we go back to that drawing right here, AF and EC are perpendicular. So you could say AF is perpendicular to CE. Now, how do you know it's perpendicular? Okay, this means perpendicular. How do we know that they're perpendicular? Because there's a right angle. Okay, the right angle. All right, continuing on. All right, the midpoint and distance formula, very important, okay? The midpoint and distance. The midpoint, you take the two x values and the two y values, divide them by 2, and that becomes your x and your y by adding and dividing by 2 to find the average point between the two. And the distance formula, by using the correlative of Pythagorean theorem, you can find the distance of the hypotenuse of a triangle that is formed between any 2 points in a coordinate plane, okay? So let's find number 34, okay? Let's do number 34. Point A is -1,5. Point B is 0,4. All right, so let's first graph it. -1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, remember this is the y-axis, this is the x-axis, this is the x value, this is the y value. Do not ever forget that. Okay, now let's graph the other one. 0, 4. 0x, 4 on the y. All right? So now we need to find the distance between the 2 points. Now you don't need to graph it, but if you did, you should see very easily, okay, what is the midpoint between this, or what is the distance between the two? Now, in the book, it's asking for the distance, okay? However, it's not asking for the midpoint. All right, we could find the midpoint between the two, okay? The midpoint between the two would be this point right here, okay? The midpoint would be x plus x over 2, comma, y plus y over 2, and that would be -1 over 2, comma, 9 over 2. which is 0.5 comma 4.5. And if you look here, this is 0.5, this is 5, 4, this would be 4.5. So at the combination of 4.5 and 0.5, that point is the midpoint of that line. Okay? Now, let's actually go ahead and do the distance formula for this same problem. Okay? The distance is equal to the square root of x minus x1 squared plus y minus y1 squared. Okay, that's the distance formula. Simply just plug in your x's and plug in your y's. -1 minus 5 squared plus 0 minus 4 squared, square root of that. So you have -6 squared plus -4 squared. -6 times -6 is positive 36 plus 16 is 52, the square root of 52. Okay? Now, the question is, can you take anything out of that? Well, you could take a 4 out of that. You could do square root of 4 times the square root of 13, okay? Which is equal to 2 square root of 13. Okay? 2 square root of 13. So the distance, let me just make sure I didn't make a mess. 36, 16, 52. Hold on. Definitely made a mistake there. Wow. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. Now, we did all the math right, but we inputted it wrong. Okay, again, x -1 minus x 0 squared plus 5 minus y 4 squared. Okay, so what we get is 1 squared, sorry, -1 squared plus 1 squared, okay, equals the square root of 1 plus 1 is the square root of 2, which is 1.4142. Okay, so we say the distance is 1.4. Now listen, how did I know that I got it wrong? Well, I did the square root of 52 and I got 7.2. Okay, guys, listen, if the distance between this is 1 and the distance between this is 1, there's no way that this length could be 7.2. Okay? Not possible. This is why you have to see when you check your answers to see if it makes sense. Then when I looked back, I realized that I did -1 minus 5, meaning I did x minus y, but the formula is x minus x. Okay? Very important to learn when you make a mistake and to catch yourself so that you can correct yourself. Okay? Continuing on. All right, so the midpoint of GH. GH has endpoints G negative 3, 2 and H 3 negative 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and G. Okay, so we have a all right, we have a line segment GH. Okay, we need to find the midpoint. Now, if you were to create like a little triangle here, right, a little right triangle, this is how we get Pythagorean's theorem, right? You have a length of 6 here, and you have a length of 2 plus 2, a length of 4 here. Okay, so you could do 4 squared plus 6 squared equals, we could say GH squared. Okay, so in order to find GH, you have to square root both sides, and you can say GH is the square root of 4 squared plus 6 squared. Okay, now you might say like, okay, well that looks so much easier to find the distance than what you just did on the page before. Well, when you draw it out, you can simply just count the lines, right? On the page before, whoops, if I drew this out, I could just say 1 squared plus 1 squared, okay, is 2. The square root of 2 is this, and that was our answer, the square root of 2. You can simply just find the length of each line by finding the difference between the points. 2 to negative 2 is a difference of 4 points. 3 to negative 3 is a difference of 6 points. So GH is equal to the square root of 16 plus 36. Now this one is 52. Okay, so GH is 7.2, yada, yada, yada. Now the question isn't asking for the distance. However, I just wanted to show you how you could find the distance easily from a graph. Okay, the midpoint is actually much simpler. The midpoint is negative 3. Let's write the midpoint formula out first, actually. X plus x1 over 2, comma, y plus y1 over 2 to find your x and your y value. All right, so it's going to be in here. You could actually tell that it's going to be at the origin, right at 0, 0. My drawing isn't to scale. So if we said x is negative 3 plus 3 over 2, and y is 2 plus negative 2 over 2. You end up with 0 over 2, which is 0, and 0 over 2, which is 0. So you get 0, 0 is the midpoint. Okay? All right. Moving forward into our final section, perimeter, right? You have square, rectangle, and circle. These are formulas you guys should know already in terms of your mathematical journey. If you don't know it, don't feel stressed. Don't be worried, right? You can look at it during your test, okay? However, it's something that you should start memorizing right now, right? You want to be able to find the area. You want to be able to find the perimeter. If you have to build a fence, if you need to build a bunk bed, if you need to build whatever it is, maybe you're planting, some garden and you need to know how many square foot of fertilizer you need. Maybe you're, getting flowers and you need to know how spread out you want your flowers and you're at the store and you can't remember. You want to be able to do this simple math so that you can solve these problems, okay? So for example, find the perimeter and the area of each figure, okay? I'm actually gonna load this up into the Jamboard. right, so of course you guys see the answers right there. That's not a problem, okay? And again, you see these little squares, right? This means 90 degrees, okay? It also means if I had, if I called this point A, and this B, and this C, I can say AB is perpendicular to CB. Why? Because they form a right angle, okay? All important stuff. I could say, AD is equal to BC. Why? Those two lines tell me that they're equal. All right, so perimeter is simply going to be 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, right? One side equals 8, and there are 4 sides, right? So 4 times 8 is 32. 4s is the formula for perimeter of the square. Now, side times side, or side squared, is the area, which is 8 squared, which is 64. How does that work out? Well, if I were to have now, I know that these aren't equal, but I'm doing my best. All right, if you break this down into 8s, 8 times 8, 64, there are 64 little squares in there, okay? There are 64 squares. That's what area means, okay? Now, where I actually want to focus our attention is on this one right here, okay? Because this one's a little more complex, and you have to use some logic to figure out what is happening here, okay? Basically, you have 2 shapes, all right? When you do the perimeter, okay, you have to understand these double lines. So this would be 5, 3, 3, 5, 5. So perimeter would be 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. Okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 5s and 3 3s. Now it's much easier to just say count the 5s and say 4 times 5. Count the 3s and say 3 times 3. So you get 20 plus 9, 29. Did I miss a 3? I think the book made a mistake. 8, 23, 26, 20. No, I made a mistake. Did I?
Another 3 right there.
What's up?
You can see that where it says the 3-inch, there's 2 1 lines. So I think
Oh, right. Okay. Thank you. Like I said, Mr. Scrivener definitely makes mistakes. So 20 plus 12 equals 32. Okay, how did I get 12? 4 3s. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 3s. 1, 2, 3, 4 5s. All right, so that's perimeter, just counting them all up. Now, area is a little different. Area, you have to section it off into 2 separate areas.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay? In which case you would say 5 times 5, 25, plus 3 times 5, 3 times 5, 15. Add the 2 together, and you get 4 inches, 40 inches squared. Okay? the perimeter 32 inches, and the area 40 inches squared. Okay? Now, I'm going to open it up for a moment of questions. Are there any questions that you guys would like answered? Right, that's the end of the review section. This chapter test is for you guys to practice on your own and to check your work to see if you got the answers correct. So any questions?
Mr. Scrivener, where can we view the recording of this class?